just welcoming us and letting us explore what are some of the parallels between a yoga asana and a pose that might be in the sun salutation and what a baby does, and also the animals that are named within some of these poses. So we had a lot of fun with that. So thanks to Michelle and Hunter for being willing to be photographed and be published. And then also I need to thank very directly Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen. I certainly would thank Irmgard Bartenieff if she was still alive, but Bonnie was instrumental. Like I was calling her once a week and saying, what about this? What about that? Where did you really learn about this part of the endocrine system? And so there are stories that are unpublished anywhere else in the world in this book that are quotes from Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen.
So those of you who are students of body mind centering, fans of body mind centering, it just feels like a lot of fortune, a lot of good fortune in this book, and a resource for everybody. This is for dancers. This is for yogis. This is for every human being that moves or wants to move more than they're moving. There's so much in here. I flipped it open earlier today and found a paragraph telling you what bone is connected to the little toe, what bone is connected to the second toe, what part of your pelvis is connected to the third toe. You could spend a whole week, a month exploring that one paragraph of the book and using it to help your alignment improve, your strength improve, your connection to the earth improve. So that's one little paragraph, but there's 10 chapters. And in the beginning, I'm supposed to do this in 60 seconds or less. Someone got a timer, 10 chapters in 60 seconds. The first chapter gives you a lot of history about these different movement forms that Martha has been privileged to study with some of the founders of Laban, Bartenieff, Body Mind Centering. Then we move into the sun salutation, to yoga itself. There's some history there, some interesting, surprising facts and stories. Then we move into the glands and so much to say. You can really geek out on the glands. And that's maybe not a very American thing to do, but we're hoping this book is going to help become more of an American thing to do, because knowing about our glands is a big part of how we can all become healthier people. Then we move into the chakras.
And let me just jump in to say about glands. Like there are a lot of different kinds of glands, but we're talking here about hormone secreting glands. So the endocrine glands.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Versus salivary glands.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Specifics important.
Yeah.
So from glands, we move into chakras. A lot of great information there. Then we begin to bring it all together in a chapter that applies each of those things to the actual poses of the sun salutation and some other poses in yoga. So you can look at a pose and like cobra, pushing into the floor, bringing your chest up, and connect what glands are getting stimulated by that, what hormones are getting released by that, what developmental movement that's related to from your baby years. It's very interesting, and it makes the practice feel more three-dimensional and rich. Then we move into developmental movement, so you can learn with these gorgeous photos of little Hunter. And then there's a chapter on pain. There's a chapter on some of the endocrine gland issues of our time, thyroid issues, adrenal issues, really good, rich information in there for you and your loved ones in your community. Am I missing anything before I close out with chapter 10?
We picked 4 syndromes. So adrenal fatigue, thyroidal energy, pineal and sleep.
Yeah.
And then also the thymus and the immune system. So they're pretty hefty topics that lots of people need resources around these days.
And for an example, we sink into talking about menopause quite a bit, which is something we really need more of in the world, more information on women's issues, more information on women's health.
And you relate them to the joints. I say you because Shakti really added a lot to this chapter, really looking at how do we adapt the yoga poses for different kind of joint issues, understanding kind of restorative yoga, but also using these endocrine joint connections, which is something I'll talk more about in a little bit.
Yes, great. And then we close out in chapter 10, bringing in our mutual love of herbalism for over the past decades. And we bring in herbalism, including plant medicines and psychedelic medicines. And we talk about nature and our connection to the earth and the world climate and politics. So it's sort of really related to your inner world, your insides, as well as the whole world. Got it all
That
in
was
here.
sort of a surprise for us. Like, we didn't know that chapter was going to be probably our favorite chapter, but we just would have conversations. We'd be doing our work and then go, when I was outside and I was practicing, da, da, da. And we realized that that was such an important part for both of us, both use of herbs just to balance our lives, to
Mhm.
heal when things were difficult, but also getting outside. And, the pandemic was happening. So getting outside was really important.
Yeah, here in New York City, maybe different from many places in the world. That's the importance of herbs was really awoken for us both, because it's another way to help connect us with nature in the city, and a real way. And a shout out to Serge Cashman, our photographer, who's just walked into the room.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so nice to see you here. Glad you're feeling better. I think we've given you enough of an intro, and if anyone wants to ask more about any of that, please save your questions for the Q&A. We're going to talk a bit more. We're going to guide us all through some embodiment experiences, and we're saving some time before 7:30 for questions and answers. So folks on the live stream, if you could save your questions till like 7:15 and start typing them in, then it'll help us to not miss your questions. Yeah.
Okay. So we're shifting to really focusing on us on the live stream as well.
And doing stuff.
And doing stuff.
Okay, so. So we want to give you all a little taste of the book, and we chose the heart as our organ and the heart bodies as the endocrine gland we're going to be focusing on. We're going to bring in some of the others, particularly the adrenals and probably the thyroid, but we're going to be focusing on the heart and the heart bodies for the rest of our talk. And that brings us to this beautiful color, which you can just enjoy. But let's come into the heart physically first. So I invite everyone to accompany us at home and here. Let's start with some tapping of our fingers on the heart. And above it on that bone, the sternum bone that covers it and protects it. Maybe hearing the sound and feeling your breath. Taking a nice breath and a nice exhale. Just being a way to help us arrive and ground, touching that bone. And let's still that down, let it get softer. Martha's doing some nice softer touch, maybe just one hand on the heart. So you can feel your heartbeat arriving more and more here, feeling the chair that you're sitting on. If you're leaning against something, feeling what your back is supported by. So those outside things helping you feel your body and space. It's orientation. Here's your heart that pumps your blood. Brings oxygen, fresh oxygen to your whole body, to all your systems and to your brain. And within your heart are the heart bodies which have endocrine function. Are they calling them glands yet?
They are now.
Oh, so when this work began, when body mind centering work began, the heart bodies were heart bodies. Science had not, but the BMC practitioners experienced endocrine energy in this place and called them heart bodies. And in the past 15 years, science has caught up to that and published and done research, and now they're officially known to be endocrine glands within the heart. So you're touching that. Breathing in and out. And bringing it in a little yoga. Let's bring in Ganesh Mudra. So one hand facing out, one hand facing you. Clench the fingers, grab. And when you breath in, pull at the elbows out wide. Exhale, relax. This is activating your pec muscles. And again, pull, exhale, release the muscles. Feel how that makes you wider and broader. One more time, pull and release. And relax your hands and take a moment just to notice, do you feel broader or wider? Are you more aware of your heart? Eyes closed or eyes open? from this place of the physical body, heart, glands, muscular strength. Let's bridge from the endocrine system, the electrical system of the endocrine system, to the chakral system, energy system. That's a big part of what we're doing in the book, is bringing those two systems together. And the color green, this emerald green, is the color that we use for balancing the heart. So I invite you all, and I'm not sure what it looks like to folks on live stream, but to take a minute for a color meditation. To let your eyes drink this color in. If you like, you can take a picture with your eyes, see the color, and then close them and continue drinking the color in, or keep your eyes on the color the whole time. And just notice, what effect does this color seem to be having on me? Do you notice any sensations or emotions? Perhaps visualize the color coming right into your heart and nourishing your heart chakra, your broad chest area, your heart protected by the pericardium. This color has a vibration. We talk about sound and sound healing in the book. And some of that is corroborated by some research in the book. We're going to bring in actual sound, your human sound. So the sound, the vowel that the rishis 4,000 years or so ago, and this is written, found as the sound that encapsulates the essence of the heart is yam. So try saying ya, Y-A, ya,
Yeah.
ya.
Yeah.
And notice if you feel it here, ya,
Yeah.
ya,
Yeah.
ya.
Yeah.
And then let's add an M onto that to turn it into a hum or a mantra, a humming, and yum.
Yum.
Let your lips be loose so you can feel the vibration in your lips. Yum. Inviting it to meet this area to balance. Yum.
Yum.
And then just notice, what effect does that seem to be having upon me? My feelings, my body, my thoughts. Have my thoughts slowed down a bit? The idea is we're activating this center, and let's help balance it into the whole body by tapping the feet on the ground to ground that energy, give it a place to go, right? As well as tapping the top of your head to give it a place to go up and out. And if you happen to have generated a lot of energy from doing that, you might want to tap your feet some more, or smooth your whole body down to ground. Yeah. So that's a nutshell of what we talk about in the body. We're going to keep layering more onto it. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Okay.
So hopefully it's just okay to keep going. Yeah. We've already, just with what Shakti shared so lusciously, played with energy flowing into the ground and out the top of the head. And that is a large microcosm, the bigger macrocosm actually for the body of working in threes,
Yes.
which is a theme that I don't know where the term came from, but the idea is very much open and used again in the work of body mind centering. Names come up from different people, and I know I used it from very early on, so 30, 40 years. Working in threes simply means if we're working on something that's generating a lot of energy in one area, we need to open above and below. So 3 points of energy just to get the flow going. So sometimes it can be very specific, like with the heart bodies, it might be literally the thymus above and something called, and these are still called bodies, not glands. So the heart glands, the racco body. So those would be 3, or what we just did, which is more either at the base of the pelvis, the root chakra and the crown chakra, or what we did was feet and head.
Yeah.
So just opening up space is another huge theme in this work. And because I have training in the work of Rudolf Laban, who did a lot with architecture and also working with crystals and sacred crystals, the Platonic solids. So in other words, those crystals that have equal sides. So a tetrahedron, a cube, where it's every side is a square, exactly the same size square. The icosahedron is getting bigger, and then more like a circle or a globe would be the dodecahedron. So there are these different forms, and his theory was that we are constantly moving inside one or the other of these forms. In yoga, a lot is happening in what we call the sagittal plane, forward and back and up and down, especially within the sun salutation. It's a very sagittal practice. So we also do teach about coming out of it into twists and turns and tilts, but we also really honor these spatial tensions. To add in another layer, in the BMC work, when we're looking at how a baby learns to move, to take the example of the heart, if I were down on the ground, it would be my heart that's on the ground as I'm learning to lift my head. And so this is really resting and my head is coming up. And then gradually it's more my liver. Different organs are different fulcrums for beginning to suspend off the ground and eventually learn to balance over 2 feet. So the organs go from being very important in this dimension to then hopefully being fairly organized. I like that word, right? In the vertical dimension when we go to standing. So I started playing with that with the gland energy as well. And so within yoga, and we can just do this. This is a heart namaste. Very similar to this one, but now pressing and pushing, much like the baby would here.
Anjali Mudra.
Anjali Mudra, and working with the heart having volume in your back. You might just feel your hands and then sort of the back of your chest, your heart. And this is helping the organ, but also stimulating the gland. Then beyond that, the push, if you really press in, is meant to come into the wrist joints a bit. So those are the joints, but also stimulate the glandular energy of the heart. Now we're just going to go up a little and bring us into the thymus, the reach of the hands. And then here you can kind of feel your feet into the ground. So from the center of your neck where your thyroid is by the Adam's apple down, reaching your feet downward. So just getting this tensile energy, we call it tensegrity, and then coming out of it any way you want. You might choose to collapse in a good way and rest over your thighs. And we're going to talk about this in a minute. Or you might just want to sit upright for a moment. I always like to rest on my thighs. This helps our adrenal glands, just coming into the navel center, just completely folding and yielding. So then gradually, I'd like you to reach your head and fingertips out again and come as high up as you want to come back to sitting and being together. So I'm just going to repeat 2 or 3 ideas there just as review. One is the idea of finding space and opening up channels. So being aware of where you're going in space, we call spatial intention. Another is the idea of a push stimulating, but the other is the idea of a reach stimulating. One is compression and the other is more suspension. So working with suspending in space and sometimes compressing. So these are ideas that are throughout the book. And then I'm going to end with just saying that in this book, on the heart bodies, page 76 to 77, and this is true for each of the glands. It's like this chapter 3B is actually just a little encyclopedia. So you can look it up whenever you want. But I want you to know what we cover in it. It's the physical description, like how big is it? Where is it? The location is where is it? What is its function? So a lot of study just from basic physiology books, but trying to be as up to date as possible. What are the hormones that are secreted? And in this case, it's going to be things like atrial natriuretic peptides. It's pretty complicated science, and how it relates to the brain and all kinds of chemoreceptors. Then we have a section on what is the quality of mind? When we bring in that heart energy, where does it put us in our kind of attitude, our sense of self? And that's called the body mind centering mind state, or dynamic embodiment quality. And Bonnie Cohen was really strong with me. She goes, if you don't feel it, don't write it. It's got to be yours. So it's not just body mind centering, it's also dynamic embodiment. And then the history. The history could be some scientist in the 1870s, or it could be Bonnie Cohen saying, I'm studying Alice Bailey's energy work, and I got a massage and I felt this. So all kinds of science history and then somatic embodiment history. So that's just the kind of thing that's said about each of the glands.
Shall we move through the?
Yeah,
rest?
I'll say
I
one
s-
last sentence and then pass it
Are
to
we going
you.
to bring that into movement at some point?
Sure, you
Yeah.
can. Yeah, but I want to
Okay.
say one thing,
Yeah.
which is the whole point of doing a book on the sun salutation was, first of all, many people know this movement ritual, but most importantly, it's a movement ritual. So you can apply any of these concepts to any movement ritual. The whole idea is, oh, if I do it today, how does it feel different from yesterday? And how will it feel tomorrow? So it's, for me, a kind of inventory of how I'm doing, to return to a familiar movement. So it may be Qigong, it may be a different movement practice that you have, but you can still apply these principles to it.
And Martha reminds me that, oh, I moved my mic down, that the title of the book is Dynamic Embodiment of the Sun Salutation, but like our friend and teacher, Peter Ferrico says, it's nominally about the sun salutation. The sun salutation, like you were saying, is the scaffolding, like any movement practice could be, that we're applying all these concepts to. And it is this beautiful movement ritual. I might just read a little bit about that because we forgot about that part. Just reading a few paragraphs from the book about the history. The sun salutation in the United States and in dozens of nations around the world, one might be referred to a friend, a colleague, or even a doctor to go to a yoga class to help improve conditions like poor posture, a bad back, hurt neck, or overall stiffness. In India, it is just as likely for someone to be referred for a glandular issue, such as a problem with the thyroid. In India, there is an understanding that yoga affects the unseen or more subtle physical glandular system, as well as the organs, glands, and nerves, not just the muscles and bones, as in the West. Whereas yoga dates back at least 5,000 years, the sun salutation, Surya Namaskar, is, newsflash, modern. It dates back, I think, to 1929. This is surprising for many. Yeah, this is surprising for many yoga practitioners, including myself. For in this short time, this ritual, this linking of the poses has taken on ancient and archetypal significance for many. It is meaningful to face the sun in doing it, just as the door to the Native American sweat lodge faces east, where the sun rises. And like Martha was saying, if you choose to engage with it in a sacred manner, it has a sagittal orientation. It is geared toward one singular focal point, the sun, which is in the front. And this movement represents greeting the dawn or disappearance of the new day. There's also a lunar version, Chandra Namaskar, the moon salutation, developed here in the States in the 60s, which is a set of more inward, quieting and restorative poses. So to give us a little frame, I think we get really telescoped in and forget to come out and sort of look at the big frame. We have a little bit of time left. Do you still want to move into maybe some joints and some movement?
I mean, I could speak to the lower back and the adrenals just to repeat that
Right.
for a second.
Sure.
So I don't know how many of you chose to just kind of fold over, but I will say that in doing the sun salutation, I have done it with a frozen shoulder, meaning like you can't put your bra on or put on anything that has a zipper in the back, or zipper in the front's actually pretty tricky too. Just like you can't move your shoulder. And I've also had a Baker's cyst from Lyme disease. So couldn't bend my knee, had to walk down the like that. When it's important, you figure out how to work with it. And these principles of developmental movement, baby movement, push and reach, these principles of working with breath, touch, sound, color have really helped, as well as locating the glands. And one of the things that we haven't said really specifically, although Shakti intimated it, is that the idea is that the 7 chakras are where the 14 glands also converge with a neural plexus, and a lot of nerve energy. So it's a chemo and neural electrical convergence at these sites. So we use all of that to just help us through these stiff joints. Underlying all that, if you're a New Yorker especially, you probably drink coffee or eat chocolate or just buzz from the energy of the city, maybe, who knows. So I have just added this folding rather than this more dancey, always being in straight leg. What's it like to just hang? And so from there, you might then go into the lunge, you might then go into some kind of stretch, but to take the time here to just really let go is one way. And now we're relating to the joints, again, using information from Alice Bailey, from Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen around the adrenal glands governing the belly region, relating to the sacroiliac joints, the knees, and the lower back. So lumbar, pelvis, into the knees. So if there's even a little knee pain, what would it be like to rest more and drink less coffee? That is our koan for tonight.
And but we'll bring in a little movement just for fun, but also because it helps bring in some of the glands. So remember that connection to the earth, that tensegrity, that reach, that stretching with you, moving up here, how we were arching up. Let's maybe all repeat that together, the reaching up, activating the thyroid, and then come back down to hands at the heart and the thymus level. And let's just play a little, like for 60 seconds with movement and space in front of your body with your fingertips, your wrists, bringing in the joints, the elbows, the shoulders. And this is joints activating the thymus, thymus activating the joints. There's a connection here. Do you want to weave anything in?
Yeah, just to say historically with BMC, we went back and forth with, is the thyroid related to the shoulder and the thymus to the elbow, or vice versa? So in the end, I've been playing with both. Like if you don't open the thyroid and the thymus, which is this big part of the immune system right at the top of the breastbone, and the thyroid again at the Adam's apple, if they're not working in consort, there could be just this overall floppiness in the shoulders, this sense of not the broadness that you've helped us get here. So working with all of it.
How to help that strength, this thing we often do, oh, I'm going to sit up straight now. How for it to come from the inside.
Yeah.
Be an organic, manageable, sustainable, softer strength. That's so much of what is in the book.
Yeah.
We have a little time left. Should I move into chapter 10, or did you want to touch on any?
No, I think you can close it out and then let's move to questions. So start thinking about your questions.
Great. And so, yeah, live stream, start thinking about your questions.
Type.
So to kind of bring it all together, we wanted to read a little bit from chapter 10, and I'm going to like it down. How do I do that? The sheltering in place that COVID-19 necessitated created unexpected inward time for most of the world. The stopping of modern life and its pollution gave us stark contrast of cleaner and quieter skies throughout the world. Indigenous peoples across the planet are trumpeting the cry for all of us to tune in to change our habits to care more for the earth and all peoples everywhere. This is a feminine energy rising from the earth itself and in all of our bodies that says that all people, animals, and plants matter. All beings are connected. Most important in reconnecting to the appreciation of being nature, as well as depending on nature at all levels of existence, recognizing our equality and interdependence. When you understand this depth of interconnectedness on a deeper level, you know that how you treat your body is connected to how you treat the earth. Wake up to loving yourself more, treating yourself better, eating well, and you will find you can't help but care more deeply for the planet. Connecting with nature, feeling her life force can help you honor and treasure your life force and your body. We have cut ourselves off from our bodies, think Newton, and from the planet for far too long. New and rising multicultural, feminist, decolonial, and narrative psychology perspectives echo this cry. Indigenous people from all over the world are saying that COVID-19 is in fact part of this wake-up call, that the earth created it, and that this is our opportunity for us to heal ourselves, our societies, and the earth itself. Listening is intrinsic. I'll leave it with that. Enhancing the ability to listen within and engage in self-care can allow for listening to each other, to animals, to trees, and to the earth. Thank you for listening. There's so much more we would like to share, but we also want to open it up to you all now in case there are questions here in the room or coming from the live stream.
I was just curious, is there any particular movement if you wanted to work on pineal gland and open that up to your next question?
I mean, we could go to the developmental. I can do that, but go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, and I was thinking really subtle, like really internal, but to repeat the question, Nancy is asking, what is there for helping to activate the pineal gland within the brain? What movement is there that one could do? Martha, go ahead.
So we know that this is kind of along a line that we call the crown chakra. So it's very much related to birthing. The movement is of birthing. So when you're in child's pose, again, these shoes aren't the best, but my ankles aren't fully down, but basically here, learning to push from the head, which I do in dance classes sometimes, pushing from the head, or just this dates us. Some of us remember Jack in the Boxes, this idea of pushing down and popping up. So this is this compressional and then the more suspensional support. So pressing from the head towards the tail is a stimulus for the pineal. Yeah.
And then if we combine that in with visualizing certain colors and tones, the sound kasham and sort of blue purple light. And there's also some sort of, am I mixing up pineal with mammillary when talking about balance?
Well, and also silence and sound in general.
Yeah, and
So,
the
yeah.
opposites.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gives you some ideas. Okay. 6. Yeah. Yeah. According to Alan, someone just asked if Kasham was for the 6th chakra or the 7th chakra. And according to Alan Finger, our teacher at Ishta Yoga, Kasham, yeah. But maybe you're remembering it differently than me. Maybe we'll talk later.
Yeah, please. Women's health. Yeah.
So the question is about women's health and hormonal health relating to women's issues, and it's chock full. And the syndrome chapter, it talks a lot about, I mean, it happens for men and women, but more women are suffering from thyroid imbalances and adrenal imbalances. And we have a lot in there with from visualization to actual movement that can be done to help strengthen areas, strengthen glands. And I guess I'll just, in Western culture, we tend to separate things. So a lot of it is about working with the whole system, with hormonal imbalances, working with all the connected, the glands. And do you want to piggyback on that?
Just a couple things. One is that, like, charts. So one of our charts is understanding the gland, chakral, and joint relationships. And then the next within that is like, what movements did we do as a baby to stimulate, for instance, the gonads, right? If we're talking about sexual energy or just the cycles of both men and women. So it just so happens that in this theory, and I will call it a theory, I have my doctorate in movement science. So until, there are a lot of people saying it's exactly that, then I usually still call it a theory. Pushing from the leg could be forward, could be a walk, but it also could be standing and balancing or going down and up, comes into this region, and pushing from the arm into the gonadal region. So push from the leg into the tail, the root chakra, push from the arm into this area. It's like a mermaid going backwards, like with a big tail swooping, trying to show it. We do it in dance classes, sometimes just going like that. Just C curve, bringing this energy in. So it's a movement we don't do. Wow. We've got to do that. So it's crawling backwards. It's pushing off a wall into our core, connecting our arms. It's pretty interesting, I think, because a lot of girls, I know this was my experience, it's changed a lot, which I'm happy about, didn't get to be on the jungle gym when we were in the playground. So we lost that arm to center connection.
Even 10 years ago, we were at a party, Stuart and I, where all of my friends, teenage girls, didn't know how to do push-ups. And so we were, teaching them how. But it's like from a body worker, energy worker's perspective, so much energy is stuck and not moving, not active, not touched. And so if we bring in that movement that Martha's talking about, at the very least, now energy is moving, life is happening, the blood can get in there, oxygen can get in there, and that's part of the balancing that can happen.
Yeah, there's so many levels to that, because it's like, what is my arm doing and what does my arm represent? Well, my breasts are there, there's all the central pathways as well. So getting just the joints moving gets one level, and then bringing in the soft tissue and connective tissue and all the other kinds of tissues that like the endocrine energies or the blood energy is part of what we use to kind of get things going.
Do we have any live stream questions?
And then
We don't.
and
Oh, okay.
Serge did
Serge's
raise-
got a question.
or a comment.
Yes. The string poses being done by Krishnamacharya for the first time. Oh, good idea. So certain the salutation and the
Yes,
teachers.
the salutations we pretty much know about because it's written down.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of known. If you research it, it'll let you know what's happened when. What's not very clear is about the connection of the glands to the chakras,
Yeah.
because the Indra Devi's first book, I think was called Forever Young, Forever Happy, also something like that. Actually mentioned, and she learned from Krishnamacharya, just like Iyengar and Patabi Joyce and B.K.S. Deshikachar.
Yep.
So it's interesting if you know where was the first time the connection between the glands and the chakras was made. Thank you.
Are you're asking? Or-
Yeah. Do you know?
Yeah, it was in that same time when the poses were linked together in the 20s. That's when there was this big fitness movement arising in India for it was sort of a matter of national pride. And there's a lot of writings. A lot of it was at the Smithsonian exhibit in DC like 10 years ago or so. It was in the 20s. There's pamphlets and small booklets with writing I think about, yeah, glands and chakras. Yeah. Yeah, but I
And this woman,
think it
Alice
goes-
Bailey, that I've referred to, was also writing. I don't know the exact years, but 30s, 40s, 50s, and where the understanding is that she was getting her knowledge more kind of from the psychic realm. So whether it was also influenced by yoga would need some research as well. So,
the bulk of our connecting is through the world of body mind centering. And
Mhm.
that started in the early 70s.
mhm.
And Bonnie was studying yoga. She and Martha actually were going to some yoga classes together in the 80s.
1975.
So 75.
Mhm.
So that's where a lot of we're doing it, Serge. A lot of it is us doing it and feeling it in our bodies.
It really is
Yeah.
the body mind centering that mapped it out in the most systematic way I'm aware of, to actually name that there were certain glands that weren't even being talked about if you look at the chakras together with the glands. And then feeling again through this other source. That was the surprise to me when I reached out to Bonnie Cohen. It wasn't her yoga experience so much as her study of a book called Esoteric Healing of Alice Bailey, that she said, oh, there's probably something here as well. And so certainly the hint was there, because in yoga, there was a practice that was working with some kind of energy. But then she was saying there are bodies that probably are hormonal. And then I remember being in Canada in 1986, opening up a newspaper, and some scientists had found a hormone being secreted from this area. Nobody in the US was talking about it, but it was I happened to be there, that day reading the paper. And that was the beginning of this ANP, this naturopathic peptide that was coming from the atrium. So a lot of it is still just unfolding.
Yeah.
And for us, the pineal was still just a body. Nobody knew about melatonin. I mean, now it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, but 50
it's
years
pretty new,
ago,
though.
we didn't
Yeah.
even know about it.
And I think to your point, Serge, the connection in India is more to the physical body, not to the chakras. That's why you're asking that. The glands and the chakras is really what you're asking about.
Mhm.
So yeah, this is new, because I think those writings I'm talking about are talking about the glands and the poses, the
Mhm.
glands and movement, the glands and the physical postures, not
Mhm.
necessarily about the chakras.
So this
Yeah.
place that we call neuroendocrine is also really important. And for Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen, there was a writer researcher out of, I believe, Philadelphia called Temple Fay. And when she started reading Temple Fay's work, it was like, oh, someone else believes that the nervous system and the endocrine system work in consortium. And that was huge for her. And now, of course, neuroendocrine is like, oh, neuroendocrine immunology, neuroimmunological. It's like we know everything's connected. But at that point in science, things were very separated.
We forget sometimes that a lot of these terms are actually new. It's
Yeah.
pretty like the past 10 years, past 20 years.
Mhm.
Yeah. Any other questions itching to come out? Please go ahead. Mhm.
Endocrine.
You're doing great. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yep.
We have to repeat your question, so we'll go. for it.
Oh,
You want-
no. Oh, gosh.
I forgot to hand
So we
you the
got a
book.
great question here asking about what is being done with research, with science, with imaging, with MRIs, with photography to help corroborate or show us these connections in the endocrine system,
Mhm.
the neuroendocrine system. Yep. And I know about quite a bit of what we have in the book is research talking about sound
Mhm.
and how you can put sand on a plate and vibrate it at a certain frequency and it will make a certain shape. like say the shape of a turtle shell. And it's not full science, not complete science, because believe me, before writing about it, I had to talk to people. Say, can I write this? And essentially saying that like sound can make sand dance in a particular way that appears to be the shape of a turtle. So we think it makes sense that there's an energy vortex at the center of the earth that moves out of the earth. And as we're born, as we're in our mother's womb, our shape and the length of our bodies and our digits is affected by the vibration and sound and energy of the world. Sounds pretty far out there, but there's more and more research trying to make the connection to showing that that's actually so that those sounds and vibrations and energies affect how we grow and how we form. And we have some of the basic stuff in here as far as that goes. And there is a teacher, Fabien Mama, who in the 60s worked with Karelian photographer from Russia. And they had blood cells, live blood cells under a microscope, and they would play particular tuning forks. They take a picture, Karelian photography picture of a cell, and it would look like, like a cell. And then they do a certain tuning fork sound and take a second picture, and the cell would be glowing with an aura. That's Fabien Mama's work. So there's 60s and 70s, a lot in that area, but I don't know how much the connections are being made, like MRIs, what you're talking about, but what do you know?
Well, I'm really happy that you said what you said, because basically the endocrine system is more chaotic, it's more based in blood, and it's more chemical. And the fMRIs and MRIs are not able to read chemistry. So vibration is the way to read that. And that's what you've described, both
Yes.
sound and visual.
And they, does anyone know the sound meditation teacher from the Middle East, your sound teacher?
That's the water guy. Yeah.
It starts with an A, his name. Oh, shoot. He has these great studies that are online that you can find that where he had people getting, is it EEG scan of the brain? Is that?
You could have EEG.
And showing a person's brain before sound, like you can see the all sorts of like peaks and colors, orange, yellow, and blue. And then you do something like this. Just from the one note, the scan of the brain's. So there's that with sound.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so that's the endocrine part. The neural part has more of this ability also to look at the EEG and the MRIs, the functional MRIs. But I did a research study in 1995 looking at baby movements, hooking us up as adults with the EEG. It was called it was 4 different types. It was myo, which is muscle, E, which is eye, E, which is electrical, and then what's the other one? Heart, cardio. So all 4. And we did the developmental movements of a baby, and the equipment exploded. That was the end of $10,000 equipment. At the time, $10,000 equipment was a lot of money for us. That was Dr. Christine Chris's lab. And so we're just at the point now where I'm presenting, for instance, this summer at the Royal Academy of Medicine in London at the Body, Brain, and Cognition Conference. Can we study movement that postulates to be stimulating different parts of the brain to really prove whatever kind of proof might be needed that those parts of the brains are getting turned on? So what you were describing is in the cortex, and it has to do with color and thought. But what we're working with a lot in this work, and it gets back to the more hormonal piece, which is less thought driven and more gut response, are low brain functions. And those are much harder to read on the MRIs and fMRIs. They're buried.
Amygdala,
Exactly.
okay.
All of those
Lower
parts.
down,
Yeah, the amygdala being around the midbrain, and then even lower,
okay.
the brain stem, the cerebellum. So we're hoping to go there, but hasn't
Great
happened yet.
question.
So thank you. It tends to be the cortex. is
Someone
what
in
I'm
the
trying to
audience is
say.
asking, aren't there PET scans now where you can look at the
Yeah,
brain?
so it tends to be the cortex, the outer layer of the brain. It's harder to study some of the deeper structures that are more emotional. Yeah. But it's starting. Yeah, it is.
So I think we might need to close out
Yeah.
because we need to be out
We
of
were
here
gonna
in 20
play the,
minutes.
The
So-
photos again, in case you just want to revisit them now that you've listened and learned, and also for the
Yeah. So folks watching on the live stream or watching this afterwards, the images that are now going to be, they'll be seeing instead of seeing the two of us are the images from the book, art by Stuart Hoyt, photography by Serge Cashman, as well as images and borrowings from many other people, including Ron Ajanto, the great New York State chakra artist. Thank you everyone for
Yay.
coming.
Yay.
Yeah, yeah. And watching.
Thank you. So we're going to go over there and sign books if anybody's interested. And if you have to skedaddle and you're thinking about getting a book, but today was not the night for you, there is a discount code on the pieces of paper that have a picture of the book. And, or you can just write it down or take a photograph, whatever works for you. It is simply DESS 20, get 20% off. So DESS, but you have to go through the website of the book publisher. So that's also on the page.
And we think the shipping's free.
Yeah, yeah. Mm.
Talking about the environment, stand back to the planet. So important to have. But the world since about the 80s completely changed with electricity. So given
To ask if we can do something right.
Cool. Thank you.
So we're gonna hang out. We'll be over there. You'll pick up a book and just look at it. They don't have to buy it. Yeah. Got it. Research is performance.
Yes, please do.
We're grateful to move in research and to these folks, to Chantel. Thank you so much.